So I've been reviewing the Idaho 4 document dump, or the Moscow murders, as the locals call it, or the U of I murders. Let's take a look at the next document. And I apologize if you can hear my air conditioning. It is very hot where I'm at right now in the background. So this next one is from Dahlinger. Let's get into it. On November 13th, 2022, at approximately 12:53 hours, I arrived on scene at 1122 King Road and spoke with Sergeant Gunderson and Sergeant Lawrence, who gave me a brief overview of the information gathered at the time. Sergeant Lawrence informed me that the Idaho State Police were going to assist in the investigation and were organizing to respond to the scene. Sergeant Lawrence responded to the police department to begin interviews. I remained on scene on the perimeter awaiting further information. Approximately 1 hour, a male approached the scene and began speaking with Sergeant Gunderson. The male was identified as blank. So there's a J and a K. I overheard blank state his daughter lived in the 1122 King Road and had been trying to get in touch with her but was unsuccessful. It was also learned that blank's daughter, blank R blank, was nearby the scene. I asked blank if he and blank could come to the police department to speak with me. Blank agreed, and I returned to the police department. I contacted Sergeant Lawrence at the police department and asked if he had the names of the victims. Sergeant Lawrence stated he did and gave me the list. I saw one of the victims' name was Xana A. Kernodle. I then met with blank and blank in the interview room off the police department lobby. Once in the room, I activated the audio and video recording equipment. I asked blank and blank for their information, and they both handed me their Arizona driver's licenses. After writing down their information, I asked blank what the name of his other daughter was. Blank told me her name was Xana. I then informed blank and blank that Xana was identified as one of the victims. Okay, so this is Xana's father and sister, I'm assuming, and that she was deceased. Both blank and blank became very upset and were crying heavily. I asked blank and blank when the last time they communicated with Xana was. Blank stated she texted with Xana on 11/11/2022 at approximately 1700 hours. Blank said the text messages were brief and were not of any substance. Blank said he texted Xana on 11/11 at around 1540 hours, and she responded stating she was at work. Blank then told me that he last spoke with Xana on the phone on 11/11 at approximately 2140 hours. When they spoke about going to the WSU football game, I asked blank where Xana worked, and he said at Mad Greek. I asked both blank and blank if Xana had mentioned anything about having any issues with anyone or anything strange occurring lately. Both blank and blank said Xana had not said anything. Blank said Xana had a boyfriend, Ethan Chapin, who she had been dating for about 6 months or so. Blank said everything seemed fine with their relationship, and blank added how he had met Ethan's parents in passing this weekend. It should be noted blank was in town visiting, as he resides in Avondale, Arizona, and it was Washington State University's parents' weekend. I asked blank and blank if there were anyone they wished me to contact for them, or if they wished to speak with anyone such as a member of the clergy. Both told me no. I gave them both my business card and informed them of our detectives would be in contact with them in the near future. Blank and blank then left the police department. Video and audio recording of the interview attached to this case. He certifies under penalty of perjury. Anthony Dahlinger. So let's also read through Aaron Morris's. It's relatively short, so I'm just going to tack it onto this video. So Aaron Morris says on 11/13/2022 at approximately 1300 hours, I was advised by Captain Barrett to respond to work due to a homicide investigation. I was told to remain available for calls for service. At around 1630 hours, I received Officer Rzinski on the north side of 1122 King Road. I was stationed for scene security and helped keep a log of who entered and exited the crime scene. Officer Smith entered at 1700 hours and exited at 1725 hours. ISP Talbot entered at 1700 hours and then left at 1740 hours. Corporal Payne entered at 1700 hours and exited at 1723 hours. Prosecutor Jennings entered at 17:03 hours and exited at 17:23 hours. ISP Jake entered at 17:25 hours and left at 17:38 hours. ISP Gideon entered at 17:25 hours and exited at 17:39 hours. Sergeant Blaker entered at 17:28 hours and exited at 17:40 hours. Corporal Payne entered at 17:28 hours and exited at 17:38 hours. Officer Stirk relieved me from the north side of the residence, and I went into the south side to relieve Officer Nunez at around 1800 hours. I stood at the rear of the residence for the scene security. I assisted Sergeant Blaker in putting evidence tape on the sliding glass door on the south side of the residence. The tape was to ensure no persons tried to access the scene overnight. I returned to the north side of the residence for the remainder of the night. Once ISP and investigators made their final walkthrough, the residence was secured at 23:44 hours. Officer Rosendahl relieved me and I cleared. There's Rosenthal. He's the one that took the picture of Kaylee's ID. And that was he created this on November 14th, 2022.